So Lab 8, you guys set up to determine your unknown. Using different staining procedures will help you know the different morphological characteristics of your organism. So we have about 15 different organisms that we utilize in this lab. And one of the best ways to divide them basically in half is to do a gram stain. Because we know generally in nature about 50% are either gram positive or gram negative, which actually ends up being the case for the group of unknowns that we have for you guys. So you can pretty much divide it in half by doing a very simple gram stain, if you do it correctly, right? And then some of the biological tests that we're going to look at next week that you guys have already done, like the phenol red broth. We can divide up the groups of organisms and start narrowing down our field. This is sometimes referred to as a decision tree, right? Or I forget the other term for it. If you then, for this group, do a spore stain, you could divide the group of 6 into half. And then the MR test, the methyl red test that we'll do next week, you could narrow it down to a single bacillus. And for the catalase test too, you can narrow these 3 down to, you can get a particular one and then still have to differentiate these 2 organisms. The methyl red test again will help group these into 2 distinct groups out of this group of organisms. Acid-fast staining, remember mycobacteria come out positive, so you could differentiate these 2 organisms very simply with an acid-fast test if you had narrowed it down to those 2. And then the VP test that we'll also perform next week, all the rest of these groups, right, where we've narrowed it down to 2, it would help distinguish one from the other, right, and we could end up with an individual organism. So this is one way of evaluating. You guys have all the known data on the last page of your unknown report. So as you go through, right, and do your different tests, you'll be able to narrow it down to a single organism by the time we get done performing all of the tests. For some of your organisms, as you'll note, certain tests are going to be more definitive than others, right? Give you more information, help narrow down the whole field of the 15 different organisms we have.